Hi, this isn't much of a horror story. I mean it, I promise. Maybe light horror at worst, but I figured I might share it. So my dad has been playing Dungeons & Dragons. At the time, his group's forever DM, but he's gotten to play a player character more recently for basically as long as I can remember. And I've been on-off taking part as long as I can remember too. So the child in the story is me. So it's been a while since I last played when the story occurred due to child with undiagnosed neurodivergent reasons. Not what the story is about though. And we were playing at a game store. I don't remember who else was there besides myself and my dad. We were in a dungeon, and usually I make my own characters, but this time I was playing just a pre-rolled rogue. And usually, even for a child, I was not this dumb. So the job of the rogue is to check for traps, right? Well, I wasn't even trying to, and I set off like 3 traps, one after the other. That might be lowballing, actually. I have memory issues. I want to take this moment to thank our rogue, because throughout this entire dungeon, we have not encountered a single trap. They haven't harmed a single one of us. And it's all thanks to the rogue. That is, well, that's certainly one way to put it. What? Dude, I mean, you know. Okay, yes. Our rogue has been protecting us by traps by setting them all off. And is currently dead. But look, I mean, I'm trying to do an impromptu funeral, okay? The last trap put me on death save, which I don't even remember if I failed or if the game ended before I could roll the last one. At least the rest of the group didn't have to deal with any traps. Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. I don't really know if your dice were just screwing you over or if you were just literally walking into every square that happened to contain a trap, but either way, I think it's impressive. This is nowhere near an actual horror story. Actually, if anything, this is more like a mild, bite-sized version of a horror story. But I figured that after listening to some actual horror stories on your channel, maybe what I learned from this could help some other newbies, especially if they're trying to figure out how to talk about this sort of thing with a friend. I am new to Dungeons & Dragons, like really new, and so is my group. We're all inexperienced, including the Dungeon Master, but since we've all been friends for quite some time, we've all agreed to figure things out together. The only important players are me and the Dungeon Master, though I don't blame the Dungeon Master at all, and we're still really good friends. So I guess the real problem is that when we were starting out, the DM had us roll for just everything. And dude, I mean everything. Starting fires, looking behind you, tying your character's shoes. Wait, looking behind you? Oh, what's going on back there? Just gonna take a... I mean, maybe this is how you're supposed to do things officially, but for our group, bro, for every group, what are you talking about? It just felt excessive. Letting the dice decide everything can sometimes just get really sloggy to get through. In the first campaign we did, which fizzled out since we were all in high school and could only play during lunchtime, there were a few times that this way of doing things not only made playing your turn a little annoying, but made role-playing uncomfortable. I remember at our first combat, my friend failed a roll and got so scared they peed their pants. So yeah, it was a little funny at the time, but I was super invested in my character, and as soon as I could, I wanted to clean them up. Hey, if it makes you feel any better, Master Chief, Hero of Earth, Demon of the Covenant, one of the most epic heroes in gaming. He has a catheter. He pees himself. Pretty sure that's canon. I don't know where I got that fact from. I haven't played Halo in years, but I'm pretty sure that's canon. I wanted to clean up my character who just peed himself, but then I had to roll to find a river in the forest. Then roll to see if I could convince the group to trust me to go off on my own for a little bit. Since we just formed as a party, this started a whole thing where I had to roll to sew new underwear every time I failed a roll, which just made things even harder. This whole thing just was incredibly frustrating. I just wanted my character to be clean. Never mind that, my character had a background in which they were a wood elf that lived in the woods their entire life, in an isolated community. So, per backstory, they should totally know how to sew and find rivers and all that sort of thing, but all we knew D&D was that one game where dice do everything, so it didn't matter how upset I got or what my character should already know, I had to roll. I didn't feel comfortable telling the DM how uncomfortable this made me at the time since we were friends and he had super low self-esteem. Besides, at the time, my friends seemed to think it was funny, so I didn't want to cause a scene. Nowadays, though, we're all playing a new campaign. In this one, we're all pirates on an adventure to fame, and we're also all a little bit older. So, when it feels dumb to roll for something that we should be able to just do, we tell the Dungeon Master that. We've also adopted Rule of Cool. It is a lot better. Right now, I'm playing a Kenku Rogue that's also a were-raven? I was gonna make a joke about that being redundant and dumb, but becoming sCHooL bird? That's pretty freaking cool, man. At session 1, when I shifted into Raven form and then back to Kenku, suddenly I wasn't wearing anything because my armor, which was just clothes, fell off during transformation, even though my character is bird, so I'm always covered head to toe in feathers. My character was described as naked and that made me super uncomfortable. So I told the DM I wanted my basic clothes to not be affected by the transformation sequence because that made me more comfortable. And we agreed to that. I still lose like an amulet if I'm wearing that or something, but for the sake of being not naked, that's what we're doing. So, moral of the story, if something makes you uncomfortable, even if it's dumb, especially if it's dumb, just talk to your DM about it. If you're actually friends, then bending rules or making exceptions shouldn't be a big deal. Oh, and have a session 0. I didn't know those things even existed before watching your channel, but I'm definitely going to bring it up to the group now.
No. They said they were considering session 0. Okay, they learned. All right? No. Killjoy.
Thank you for reading this. I really enjoy listening to your stories and advice. I love horror stories like this because they're the most realistic. However, they can absolutely sour a game. We have seen this kind of smoke turn into a big old fire many times due to lack of communication or a DM who's not truly your friend. That bit at the end, with the DM willing to bend a little bit to accommodate a player, that is the mark of a good friend. Look, if they really care about you, then small things like this won't be a big deal. Also, that bit of acknowledging the little things. One time, I revealed a traitor among the party's friendly NPCs, and one of the players suggested a kind of out-of-pocket torture technique being used on her, and me and the rest of the group were clearly a little bit confused by this. It seemed really out of character, not necessarily for the character, but also for the player. So I texted him about that, and he just said, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that. I got really carried away. That was out of pocket." From there, we just moved on. That could have turned into something, but it didn't, because we talked about it. This writer did the same thing. Proud of you, dude. Keep it up. Hey Crispy, I started watching your videos a few months ago and I've been binging them like crazy. Thank you, by the way. I have been using your videos to help learn what to look for when trying to join D&D groups. The story is old but simple, and the pandemic has blurred this memory, especially since I never talked to any of these people again. I had been introduced to D&D when I was in high school, and by introduced, I mean we played make-believe and called it D&D. My science teacher had mentioned that he and a student had been trying to run a D&D club, but people kept leaving. The science teacher was a lovely guy with too much time on his hands and could only help out by printing player sheets. I feel like if he had too much time on his hands, he could have helped out in other ways, but being a teacher sucks, so I totally get it. The DM was the only guy from the previous campaign, and I had never seen him around campus previously. He was awkward and knew nothing about D&D, just like the rest of us. The bard was a longtime friend of mine at the time. As of now, I haven't spoken to the guy in years. He was not the brightest tool in the shed, but he was fun to be around. The paladin was someone I met from science class. He was super smart and would help me study. He was realistic, and in JROTC? What is that? I went to a weird academy, super nerd college prep school, so I don't know much about normal school stuff. Yeah, I totally did not have a crush on him. And then there was me, the only quote-unquote girl. I identify as non-binary and at the time lesbian. I believe I was also a bard, but the only non-human. I played an elf. Yeah, because elves are definitely not humans with just pointy ears and an attitude. Hey, no hate here. I freaking love elves. During the campaign, I had purchased 2 D&D books, the Player's and the Monster's Guide. I also supplied the dice. Our first basic campaign was Save the Princess as the story. We did not have a session 0, technically. We had met up before the first session many times and built our characters together. We used a random d20 roll for our skills. We also had no clue what an actual session 0 was. It's close enough. We also spent some time together as friends. During this time, I was asked personal questions from the DM in front of everyone. So, why do you like girls? This wasn't the only question, but it was the one that stood out because the DM could just not comprehend that I like girls. The question was my only hint as to what would happen later. The campaign isn't as interesting as the ending of the campaign. Most of the campaign was us goofing around until we made it to our location, except for one thing. We spent some time with the princess as a group, and during that time, the 2 boys had ruined her friendship with them, while I got rather close to her. I am not sure why they didn't seem to be nice to her, since our goal was to see who would get to date her. Gross, I know, but you know. High school. After the princess was saved and returned to her father at the castle, we were given rewards. This had been a big moment. We had made this our session special. I had hosted it in my mother's classroom and ordered pizzas and drinks. We were celebrating when the question came up, who is the princess going to date? We had to roll, and whoever rolled highest got her. Dumb, I know. The Bard and Paladin both rolled a 15, but me, I got a natural 20. The lesbians have been chosen! Woo! Yeah! I'm on your side, man. I'm an ally. I was so excited. I genuinely believed she would choose me even without rolling high because I had the best relationship with her. Sadly, though, I did not get the princess. Why? The DM ruled that the king was homophobic and banished me from the kingdom, so I will never come close to the princess. No one got the princess. I got my character KO'd with no chance of using the character in future campaigns. And that's how the campaign ended. We tried another campaign without the previous DM, and I tried DMing. It went terribly, and either way, the pandemic hit, and I was moved across the country. I did not try D&D again for a long time, until now, actually. I got recommended your videos and got the courage to find your group on r/LFG. Bro, how do you watch my videos and go to r/L? What? You stand alone against the storm, bro. My sword is with you. I respect it. I actually found the game rather quickly. We had session 0, and it was lovely. All the right questions were asked, and I'm feeling safe in this new group. Thank you for not only reading this crispy, but for making these videos. First, thank you for submitting, and you're welcome for making the vids. But also, seriously, I think LFG can be the source of awesome games, and I hope your game goes swimmingly as well. It looks like it's off to a great start. The story is obviously a lot of silly high school nonsense, which I understand. At the end of the day, if you play D&D in high school, it can go in, well, a variety of directions, and many of those directions are not ideal. And that results in a lot of people discounting the possible lessons that can be learned here, but I do think there is something. The DM does not care about the goals of the players. Like, this person was the only one in the group seemingly putting in an effort to romance this princess, and literally did everything in their power to do so, even getting the perfect role, and the DM still denied them. And you know what? That sucks. It sucks in any game, and while it's not usually this transparent, sometimes DMs just kind of block you off from your goals. The satisfaction of accomplishing something is a big part of why people play these games. Fulfilling goals is cool. Don't take that away. This campaign was a prequel concerning my human rogue character. I was playing her father, High Elven Cleric, on a quest to return a princess named Anella for the story back to her home after she was kidnapped by the big bad evil guy of our campaign. Our dungeon master, I'll call her Prim for this story, was really enjoying how things were turning out for us. We were her newer group in a world she had been running for over a year now with a different group, and one session, we had a crossover between the two groups. Our group was called the Arcane Misfits, and the opposing group that Prim had been DMing for a year was called the Trigger. Sorry, they get the sound effect. Trigger Troop is just a great name. Most of the events that are notable in our main storyline was caused by them, mostly bad things, and this is important to keep in mind. Our group got on a ship, making a detour route to the land Anella was from, before the Trigger Troop intercepted our group. They got a general gist of looking for a magical signature. Since magic is very scarce in this world, the signature in this case being Anella, but they didn't know that quite yet. They attempted to board our ship, but another member of our group, an elven rogue, was not having it. He was on edge for most of the time, at least during the time they were attempting to board our ship. Anella assumed a human disguise, but that did not throw off her magical signature. So the Trigger Troop was rapidly searching the ship for her. This rival group was working with a warforged named Pebbles, and the best way I could describe Pebbles is that they were a toddler in a 7-foot robot body with no afterthought to the consequences of their actions. That sounds like a recipe for something. Rogue and another player, our Fire Genasi monk, were now more on edge, with Trigger Troop ransacking the boat. I was mainly trying to keep the princess comfortable and intervene in case a fight was about to break out. The Trigger Troop thought that diplomacy was not getting anywhere, so one of their players wanted Pebbles to try to intimidate us. I assumed it was going to be a roll or something like that, but nope. Pebbles proceeds to unhinge her jaw and spew a blast of fire on a wooden ship. So we're all freaking out at a partly destroyed, yet still somehow operational ship. Yeah, the ship is operational, don't worry. It's fine, we're all good. This thing can still sail. The captain of our ship rounded up everyone from both parties and was obviously angry about this whole fire thing. He offered parts to Trigger Troop in an attempt to forget this whole thing. However, what they really needed wasn't parts, it was the princess, who was hiding behind me as her disguise spell was wearing off. A player from Trigger Troop, a tiefling sorcerer, noticed her behind me and obviously wanted to know more. Trigger Troop decided the mission was a flop though and wanted to leave, but this sorcerer player went back, turned invisible, and tried to assess the situation moving forward, and saw Anella turn back into her original form, with the signature coming directly off her. The sorcerer tried to snatch the princess, which meant her invisibility wore off. The rogue in our group was proficient with potions and was fast enough to subdue the sorcerer with a paralysis dart. Obviously, the Trigger Troop was kind of peeved about this whole thing and took the offensive. At this point, I kind of had an idea that we were going to lose this fight. Our ship was damaged, half the crew went overboard, and the Trigger Troop was like 2 to 3 levels above us. They were level 11 to 12, while our group was level 10 at the time, which would be 1 to 2 levels above you. Math, man! Surely, possibly, we were going to lose this fight, right? But we mopped the floor with them, with a combo of teamwork, good strategy, and a bit of lucky rolling from Anella charging up a huge breath attack. The Trigger Troop ship was completely decimated and they washed up on a nearby shore. The players of that troop were gobsmacked by the whole thing. Our DM looked at everyone, rightfully shocked as she looked at her notes, and we all erupted into laughter at the whole thing. And the DM actually wanted to give something more fair, so she's holding a tournament between the two groups in the future. So let's hope I can carry the Arcane Misfit name. Wish me luck. Maybe I should give you guys the sound effect. I jinxed the Trigger Troop. Dang it. I know this is definitely more of a glory story, but I have it in here for a specific reason. Recently, I did a straight up PvP session, a battle royale where all the players fought each other, and it was possibly the best session of my campaign. I mean, it's up there in the top 5 at the very least. I am now of the opinion that PvP is freaking awesome. If people want to do it and are all having good fun, then PvP can be some really fun, friendly competition between players. We see PvP framed so often as a horror story, and yeah, PvP can absolutely turn bad quickly, but as long as everyone's having a good time with it and it's fostered in the right environment, it can be the highlight of your campaign, just like it was the highlight of this one. Don't throw out PvP as a horror story so quickly, because you might be missing out. About a year ago, I joined a game of 5th edition on Roll20 that was advertised as a series of one-shots. It was me and a handful of other people, and another player I'll call Bonk because he was playing a barbarian monk when we met. The first one-shot was based on an old article in Dragon magazine from the 80s. I played more 2nd edition than anything and thought it was a fun idea to update some of those old modules for 5e. It went fine, aside from the fact we had to roll initiative and move in turn order for all movement outside of the starter town. Dude, what? That's my worst nightmare. 24/7 turn-based mode in Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, I think I prefer to die. So it was 3 sessions when it really did not need to be 3 sessions. Also, he didn't let anyone use acrobatics for anything, which was weird because there was tricky doors you had to roll under or break through, but it was just athletics either way. Second game, mostly for the same players. We were supposed to clear out a small keep because one of us had inherited it from a crazy old uncle or something to that effect. Although, in finding out who it was that got the deed, he did make a possible trans player feel uncomfortable, and they didn't come back after that session. I hope you're doing well. In fairness, he wasn't terrible about it, just it was a 404, program not found, does not compute when the player brought up because the name on the deed wouldn't be what the uncle would know them as because they changed their name during transition. The guy just waved it off and said, yeah, that's fine, whatever works for you. Later the same session, the player used a homebrew spell that the DM approved to stun the chimera he sent on us. He got pissy, and he ended up ruling that it could only stun one of the heads, and he could still breathe fire, which would push me to near death.
Hey, DM. What's up? Yeah, do you mind if I use the spell? Oh yeah, sure. Okay, cool. Whoa! Whoa! You satisfied! How dare you die?
We almost ran out of food and water on the way there because he wouldn't let me use my Outlander background features to even find food, even when I was rolling. Next session, we were down a player, and he retconned the whole deed castle thing. We ended up storming this keep from the outside that was full of hobgoblins and a gorilla instead. We go to climb up the side of it, and there was invisible spears to impale us if we slipped at all, and he got super disappointed that the first couple people succeeded on their rolls, and the druid turned into a spider to just climb up himself. Me and Bonk, the new inheritor of the castle, took the long way to the front gate and through a long series of events, got in, and he died pretty soon after the druid's flaming sphere set the castle to fire because now apparently stone burns. Also, he fudged movement a couple times for the enemies, and I called him out on it the second time he tried. After some effort and a long rest, only the top of the castle was lost, and there was a level or 2 going down. We ended up in a room with a trapped catwalk, and he made us roll a dexterity save, which I passed, but he said since there wasn't a place to roll to, I rolled into the pit. I don't know what to do. I guess I'm just gonna jump off on purpose. So yeah, I rolled off and took an almost deadly amount of damage. At this point, I messaged him and asked what the point of the dex save was, and asked him why I had to roll instead of just stepping or falling backwards. There wasn't anyone behind me since everyone was waiting their turn to walk into the room. An argument ensued, and his side boiled down to, I'm old school, being his excuse. We finished the session, and I just left the server. Weeks later, Bonk messaged me and said that the Dungeon Master wanted to run Tomb of Annihilation and wanted to know if I wanted to join. He also pointed out that he couldn't get a hold of me because I blocked him. Which, by the way, I didn't. We just didn't share a server anymore. I said no to joining, and Bonk gives me updates about it as it develops. He said he made 3 sheets because you're gonna die, the jungles are gonna be rough, dinosaurs are gonna die, etc, etc, etc. So I decided to join just to be a Dick Nixon and help the other players through the damn jungle. I made an Eladrin Swarmkeeper Ranger and took the usually lackluster features so that I could be a proper guide through this jungle. I favored enemy dinosaurs, I had the Outlander background again, and my swarm was biting insects, in case he felt like dumping those on us. He asked what I was going to use for my terrain, and just said, oh, okay, when I told him my setup. You know, he probably didn't realize the potential of your character because you're a ranger.
And they will underestimate you.
We did roll stats with no rerolls or options or anything. Bonk had a bard with a single 14 after race bonuses and a bunch of garbo other stats. I had similar luck with a 16 and 14 and nothing else over 10. Bonk rolled better with the second character he made and decided he would try to swap characters by dying because aside from that, swapping characters was not allowed by the DM yet. So it was me, Bonk, and one other dude from before, who also had bad rolls, being a cleric, and 2 fresh off the street TTRPG newbies both playing casters. So I picked up a shield and scimitar in case I had to run interference and save the squishy newbies with no armor. The DM kept talking about things he wanted to change to make it harder, like no starting equipment. This character was made in spite, which, yeah, that was dumb. I was already not feeling this DM or this campaign, and when he dropped Variant Encumbrance, 5x Strength, with my 6th Strength from the bad rolls, I couldn't even carry even half my basic equipment, let alone weapons and a shield, and look, I was pissed. He wouldn't let me swap any stats. Told me he could probably find a pack mule for me, although it would just be bait for the dinosaur. I basically told him to get boned because he's being combative towards the players. It's not fair. It's not fun. I'm old school. That's how it is. I replied, dude, I've been playing and DMing for 25 years, and I've played mostly 2nd and 3rd, but I'm not a dick to my players. I left the server after that, and I got a message from Bonk and one of the newbies asking me to unblock him. Same issue from before. This guy just never learns. I just moved on with my life. Got to play with Bonk again in Curse of Strahd on my best friend forever's server, but Bonk would regale me of stories over the next 8 months into that Tomb of Annihilation campaign. He's still on that bard, and only level 5. They start at level 3, too. They regularly get lost in the woods and nearly starve. They still move in initiative order. They still can't use acrobatics or persuasion, period, and encounter traps with no win saves, and now he likes to call out players in general chat for playing poorly. Bonk has been too polite to leave. I'm old school, but I'm not a dick to my players, so I'm not using old school ever again. Doofuses like this ruin it. Yeah, you guys have heard before. I really love challenging, grindy campaigns. I don't want to use the term old school since I look 14 years old thanks to my endless immortality. But the point is this. Why do I run a grindier campaign with more difficult, challenging encounters? Because that's fun for me and for the players. This DM is doing it for no other reason than selfish fun. This guy doesn't like seeing his players win. He likes seeing the struggle. And I'll be honest, I like seeing the struggle too. I think it's great. But the struggle should lead to some kind of victory as long as the players are putting their backs into it. I like challenge because it forces people to adapt, to try, to care. But if all the challenge is contrived, boring, busy work nonsense, why would I care? And then at that point, what's the purpose of the challenge in the first place? Hey, that's a wrap. If you guys enjoyed, you may enjoy one of our previous episodes, someone who got mad at another player for ruining her all-girl D&D group. It's a fun one, linked in the cards. But before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you have your own stories or thoughts, you can go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment missing the princess to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email down in the description down below. Send your stories our way for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell.
No, I